In 1862, George and Jane Busby from Ashley, England, sailed for Canada with their 6 children, including William. Unfortunately, Jane died shortly after landing, and soon after that, 2 of their children also died. But the remaining family settled in Oakville. William's father remarried Elizabeth Walker in 1867, a widow with 5 children of her own. The blended family endured until William's father and stepmother both died in the typhoid epidemic of 1889. At age 13, William left Pine Grove School to join Aaron Matthews in his general store, who was also a repairer of clocks and watches. Matthews also maintained Oakville's public clocks, like the town hall and schoolhouse clocks, and taught his trade to young William Busby. When Matthews moved away, William continued repairing watches and clocks until he left for Hamilton to learn more about the watchmaking business. In 1882, Busby opened his own jewelry store at what is now 191 Lakeshore Road East. By 1884, William Busby had also purchased the lot behind and joined the 2 buildings together to create a long, narrow structure, the existing building today. One of the interesting features of the store was a large clock-shaped advertising sign that the Oakville Museum still has. It measures 19.5 inches in diameter and was painted on both sides, so it likely hung out over the street so it could be seen from both directions. Unfortunately, there are no known pictures of the hanging clock sign. Beyond watches and jewelry, he also sold cut glass and stationery. But one of his most interesting ventures was the installation of a tiny switchboard in the store's back corner. Installed in 1885 by Bell Telephone, it connected Oakville's tannery, foundry, railway station, and a few other important locations with the first telephones in Oakville. Service ran from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. weekdays with limited Sunday hours. By about 1912, it had grown from less than 25 to 500 telephone connections. Increased demand forced a move to the larger space next door under a new manager. For 40 years, Busby served on Oakville's Board of Education. Partnering with Dr. Dorland, he championed the town's first high school, a milestone in 1899. At St. John's Church, he was a trustee for 45 years, guiding spiritual life through weddings, funerals, and Sunday sermons. William married Mary Jane Walker, and George William Busby was one of their sons. Busby's son George inherited his father's skill and studied at Toronto's Canadian Horological Institute. George enlisted in 1914 and with the 19th Battalion. Promoted to sergeant, he survived gas attacks at Ypres, sniper fire, and a leg wound, only to die during a robbery in 1921 while working in a Montreal watch shop. Busby's store assembled, sold, and repaired clocks from Canada's first clock manufacturers, which started up in 1872, the Canadian Clock Company and the Hamilton Clock Company. These firms tried to compete but eventually lost out to American rivals and were bankrupt by 1884. An 1881 invoice reveals Busby bought 6 clocks at a 25% discount. Today, walnut-cased treasures with acid-etched glass, symbols of his and other meticulous work, are preserved as prized artifacts. The few remaining clocks of this type are now displayed in homes and museums. William was often seen repairing watches in his shop window, symbolizing his dedication. And when he died in 1933 at age 82, his daughters Mary Elizabeth and Selina Irene ran the store for a while, continuing the family legacy which had lasted for decades. William Busby showed a keen interest in the affairs of the community, and particularly in its educational activities. He was first elected to the Board of Education about 1883. For a quarter of a century, he was chairman of that board, and at the time of his death at the age of 82, he was its oldest member. William was also interested in beautifying Oakville and wished to see the community dump area improved, but unfortunately he did not live to see it become a park and sports playing field. Used for many years as the town dump, the marsh at the bottom of the east bank of the river, north of the Colburn, now Lakeshore Street Bridge, was eventually filled in. In 1946, it was covered with topsoil, graded, and in recognition of William Busby's activities, named Busby Park. Unfortunately, much of the park no longer exists, but a small parkette, where the original dump in 1950s park was, still bears his name. The historic Busby Jeweler building at 191 Lakeshore Road East also still stands today. He and his wife are both buried in St. Jude's Cemetery in Oakville, along with many of their children. Looking for more great content like this? Why not check out the Oakville Historical Society's website, YouTube channel, or Facebook and Instagram pages.